Oh, hold on. Sorry. I was kind of jamming out to Anita Ward there. Ring My Bell. 1970s, if I were somewhere along that line, kind of the disco era. But I thought it was really appropriate because we're going to be reviewing Bellringer, okay, by RJ Rockers Brewing, or Rockers Brewing now. It's out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's a double pale ale, and just like the name sounds, it's going to be double, okay? So let's stay tuned here. We're going to review this beer and see what makes it tick. And we're going to do it on Alrighty, folks. Like I said, we're going to be reviewing RJ Rockers, or Rockers Brewing Company now, Bellringer. And it's going to be that double pale ale, 8.0% alcohol by volume. A lot of people call it a high gravity beer, and yes, it was probably started out to be a very high gravity beer. I'm going to explain gravity of beer. Actually, this time I'm going to do it at the end of the video. So at the end, where you're normally going to see me sign off and everything and say thank you very much, subscribe. By the way, remember, subscribe, notification, like. Do that for me, please, if you would. But I'm going to, at the end, go through what exactly a gravity of a beer means. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a little bit more of an educational part there. But I didn't want to put that at the end, so in case you just wanted to skip it, don't worry about it. I am going to go through this. This is an American pale ale, and it's strong. I got to tell you, when I'm filming this, I'm hoping this really isn't going to affect me that much, but it is quite a good beer. I've had this actually at the RJ Rockers restaurant pub, and I didn't really realize this, but very recently, I want to say it was like, 2017 or something like that, they had a thing, they passed a law called the Stone Law, or the Stone Act, which allowed brew pubs. Before then, a brew pub would be able to produce their beer and sell their beer, but they can't have food. Why? I couldn't tell you. I do know that a lot of the breweries around here, they'll have a food truck. Now, by law, they have to have some sort of a food handy. Okay, whether it's snacks they sell there at the venue, or whether they have a food truck, a full-grown food truck. And that's always good, because you definitely don't want to be drinking anything without having something on your stomach. But they started to allow restaurants or brew pubs to serve food. And that's what RJ Rockers is. And I've actually been there. I've had a meal there. It's actually wonderful. In the back, they have a fantastic room for events. It's rather huge, to be quite honest. A little loud in there because, of course, you've got, it's very small, but it's wonderful. Go there if you can. I do definitely suggest anybody wants to go by. It's in Spartanburg, South Carolina. You can also find this a lot in stores, in cans. They also have a couple of other ones that are seasonal. One of them is Son of a Peach. Again, I'm not really big on fruited beers. I think we saw that with the blueberry wheat, even though that was a very good beer. You got to try that blueberry wheat from Pisgah. But the Son of a Peach is very, very popular around here. You can get it at stores, yes. So we're going to crack into this here in just a few seconds and see what makes it tick. Remember, at the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about different styles of strong beers, different styles of gravity, what that actually means and why it's important, or what the misinformation is. Oh, that's a bad word. What the perception, how's that, of high gravity beers is, and bring a little bit of truth to it. In the meantime, let's get cracking, okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this beer, and we're going to taste it. Again, I've tasted it before. Oh, I love cracking open a can of beer. And now I'm going to be drinking this out of my standard tumbler. You can drink it out of anything you want. It doesn't really matter to me, but ales usually I find go pretty well in just a standard tumbler. One thing I didn't mention, by the way, this tumbler is room temperature. I do not like frosty mugs for any reason whatsoever. What happens is whenever it comes out of the freezer, and it's usually set in a freezer, it will frost over when the beer hits it. That frost gets oxidized extremely quickly, and it puts an off flavor to it. So just think about that. But this is room temperature. Let's pour it. Now, I expect a lot out of this. I'm going to gently pour it from the side. I'm going to get it about a third to maybe a halfway up. That's usually my technique. And then I'm going to let it go calmly but firmly into the glass. And hopefully I can do look at there. Wow. Right on the mark. I got a great depth of head right off the top. Bellringer. I expect it to be very carbonated. Not overly, but pretty carbonated. Okay. So the first thing we're going to see, remember we've got our 5 categories: the appearance, the aroma, the flavor, the mouthfeel, and the overall impression. Okay. So I'm going to look at the appearance first. I'm kind of switching that around. The aroma is one thing, but the appearance initially when I get a beer, the first thing you're going to do is just look at it because they're going to pour it and they're going to serve it to you. Let's see. Relatively hazy. In fact, it's got a little trub at the bottom of it. Trub, of course, is the residue. Now, you can see that a lot in wheat beers or in Hefeweizens where you'll have something at the bottom. Does not mean that the beer is bad. It just means that it's unfiltered. So I've got some, as I'm turning it, it almost looks like clouds inside. The head was good. It's got a decent little head retention. The bubbles are fine to medium. I would say more on the fine side. Okay. Fine to medium fine. I don't see any Brussels lace at the moment. Again, Brussels lace is the residue that the head leaves around the inside of the glass. And it does look like lace. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad beer, doesn't mean it's a good beer. It just means that that's that characteristic of that brewing process. It's got a lot of proteins in it. It's got a lot of characteristics that are going to come out at you. And it's a pale ale, so I'm going to expect some hops. Okay? It's not an India pale ale. Remember, I'm not big on India pale ales. Okay. I would say the SRM, that's the color. It's hard to tell. About a 6 or a 7, maybe, depending. It's amber-ish. It's going to be a little bit more along the brown side. It does have a little bit of gold around the edges. It's definitely not clear. Okay. Let's get our sniffer ready because we're going to do an aroma test. Yeah. Wow. It's got a good hop aroma to it. It's not overpowering. It's got a good malt aroma to it, too. Huh. This is very interesting, and I'm going to tell you why. I've always talked about IPAs. You know, I got to say, my favorite pale ale or India pale ale is going to be the Sierra Nevada pale ale. And that, to me, is going to be more true to style for the India Pale Ale once it got to India. I may have mentioned this before, probably one of the first episodes, that once it got to India, it became more like a bitter. Okay, it wasn't a best bitter or extra special bitter, but it definitely wasn't extremely hopped as what we have here. Okay. So I definitely smell that hops. Now the beer specs, we're going to talk about what hops are in it, if we can find them. Let's talk about the flavor. Okay, because that's really what we're here for. Yes, very much so. I taste the hops. I'm really happy with it because it is a pale ale. Slight citrusy, malty, Okay, very good malty. I'm tasting some of that residue in there, which isn't bad because that gives it a little bit more flavor. Let's see if I can. Well balanced. I don't have a lot of overwhelming alcohol flavor to it. Yeah, a slight bite on the end. It's not metallic, but it does have a little bit of a bite to it on the end. It's just not bad. If you've ever brewed beer at home, this is much like a homebrew beer. And that could be very good because I have brewed some amazing homebrew beer. I like ESBs. I like extra special bitters or best bitters or along that style. With the exception that I know it's a pale ale, which again is a general style. A pale ale is a general style. It's not going to be like India Pale Ale or this, that, and the other. Now, you can say American Pale, you can say British Pale Ale, you can say IPA, you can say anything you want about Pale Ale. That's just a descriptive at the beginning of Pale Ale. Pale Ale would be like a imperial stout, a milk stout. Everything that has stout is going to be that overall encompassing category. Definitely a pale ale. I'd almost say yes. Let's say that this came directly off the ship somewhere in India, and it rolled off, and it had sat for months aging in that barrel, and it mellowed out quite a bit. It moved inland, and it served all the British, all the British citizens there in India. I would say this would be very close to it. Historically speaking, I couldn't tell you because, to be quite honest, I didn't live during that time. But not bad at all. As you see, we do have a little bit of Brussels lace. If you can't see that, hopefully you can. Let's see if I can move this a little bit. How about that? Let's use our beer review guidebook to kind of give you a little bit more contrast there. And that's going to go into our appearance as well. Now, the mouthfeel isn't bad at all. It's not heavy. That residue that I talked about isn't that heavy. It's not overwhelming. It is settling at the bottom, which is fine. It can do that. It's not cloyingly sweet. It is sweet, okay? It is not going to set in your mouth and go, ah! We did talk about it being a little bit of a bite on the end, a little bit of again, not metallic, but it has a little bit of parts to it that, well, can be a little bit, not astringent. Let's see if I can find on our little beer review sheet here. Remember, I said go ahead and download that because it's going to give you some of the flavor profiles, descriptors. I don't see anything here that says, I would say the closest, would be the metallic flavor. It's not oxidized, definitely. Not phenolic, solvent, no. Sour sulfur vegetable. No, it's not. It's none of those. It would be more along the lines of a very, very, very slight metallic, but not bad. It's not off-putting, that's for sure. Definitely sweet, yeah. Definitely tasting that malt. The malt's very good in it. Yeah. So now the overall impression. Absolutely would recommend this beer. I would love to try it at RJ Rockers sitting there. I don't think I've tried it at RJ Rockers. I've tried it before in the can like this, and it's been very good. Again, I knew what to expect. But I want to try it at RJ Rockers. Now, for me, RJ Rockers is, I don't know, it's maybe 30 miles away, okay? If you're ever in the upstate of South Carolina area and you're in Spartanburg, definitely stop by their place. It's wonderful. Have a meal. Yeah, have a meal. Other than that, let's crack on. I think I covered them all. So I got the aroma, I got the appearance, I got the flavor, I got the mouthfeel, and I got the overall impression. Just want to make sure I cover them all. Now, let's talk about the beer specs. Rockers Brewing Bellringer Double IPA. Style, American Strong Ale. 8.0% ABV. 48 IBU. SRM, about 13 to 14. Pours a deep amber caramel color. Citrus hop oils and alcohol aromas lead to well-balanced flavors of malt and hops, with some noticeable alcohol. The round mouthfeel leads to a bittersweet finish. Pairs well with chicken, light cheeses, or salty snacks. Well, folks, that's our review of Rockers Brewing Company, RJ Rockers Bellringer. Oh, goodness. Yes, carbonation. I love it. So I hope you enjoyed the review. I had a great time bringing it to you. Definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and the like button. Leave us comments down below as to what you want to see us do next time. If there's a beer you want us to review, if you've had an experience with one of the beers that I've reviewed, leave that comment down below. Also, remember, pick up a copy of the Beer Review Logbook off of Amazon, $8.99. It's a wonderful little book, and it's from America, the Peter Pauper Press. Again, it gives you all sorts of information about beers, gives you wonderful areas to write your experiences down. Take it with you, put it in your pocket, put it in your pants, your purse, whatever. Makes you look like a really, really, really smart beer nerd like me. Just really impresses everybody that sees it. Also, the Total Wine Total Guide to Beer. If you can find this in a Total Wine, please pick it up. I don't know if it's in print anymore. This one's 12 years old. It's kind of tattered. It is my beer Bible, my portable beer Bible. It's an exceptional little book there. Goes over all the different styles, generally going to be through the Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines and what their criteria are and what their explanations of different beer styles are. But pick it up. You can't go wrong with it. They may even have an electronic version of it. I think they do. I don't know. But if you can, email them, find out if they do. If you can get it, maybe they got one. Maybe they got one in print. Maybe they can send it to you. I don't know. It's really wonderful. If you're in the upstate of South Carolina, pick up the South Carolina Upstate Ale Trail. Okay, if you live in this area, if you want to visit, they're at pretty much any venue, any brewery or anything like that. The Upstate Ale Trail gives you plenty of spaces to write down your experiences with. It gives you the little breweries that are around here, and it gives you a short description of them, and it gives you can check off the ones you've been to right there. Lovely little book. You can find them everywhere. They're free. And as well, make sure that you look down below in the description. All this is going to be in the description here, by the way, too. The Beer Judge Certification Beer Score Sheet. You can take it, print it out, fold it up, take it with you, go to a brewery, write your experience down right here on the sheet. It's got 1, 2, 3. I think it's got one. But it'll give you all the information you need as well, the off flavors that you can judge your beer by. Definitely pick this up. You'll see that down in the description. Other than that, thank you very much. Again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you liked our reviews. If you have something you want us to review, leave it down below. Now, coming up next, if you don't want to go any further, that's fine. After I sign off here today, go ahead and go ahead and go to the next channel, whatever you want to do. Hit the end button. But I am going to be talking about gravity. I mentioned that earlier. Gravity is kind of a misnomer. Okay, a lot of people don't understand what gravity means when it comes to a beer, but I'm going to be explaining that coming up. But other than that, if I don't see you now, you'll see me in just a few minutes. But if not, thank you very much. Sláinte. Cheers. Prost. Chin chin. Kanpai. Peace, love, and beer. Okay, folks. So I did want to have the segment here which talks about the high gravity beers. Initially, when I did this, I kind of misspoke about what some of the processes and what some of the reasons were for high grav beers. I didn't want to misinform you on anything that was involved in the brewing process, or why high grav beers are called high grav beers. I have my take on what a high grav beer is and for the reason, but I did find something interesting and I wanted to clarify a few things before I post this up there and have a lot of comments. So, first of all, I said a hygrometer. It's not a hygrometer, it's a hydrometer, and a specific gravity hydrometer. And what that is, that's an instrument. It's a glass tube about so big. It's got a big fat bottom end on it with a weight in it, and then a nice thin tube up at the top with gradations on it. What that's going to do, that's going to measure the specific gravity of the water. And what that does is whenever you have the fermentable sugars inside that solution, it's going to cause that hydrometer to react, and it's going to be higher or lower depending on the specific gravity of the water. Okay, water being 1.0, a specific gravity of a beer can be, let's say, anywhere between 1.01 or 2 to 1.1 for that matter, if it's a really strong high gravity beer. Now that higher gravity, that 1.067891, anything like that, is going to indicate that it's a high gravity beer. It has more specific gravity in the water. It's kind of like sitting in the Great Salt Lake there. You're going to float a little bit more because of the concentration of the salt in the water. It's a very unique effect. So let's get cracking to it. I did read an article here, and I wanted to tell you what the article says and how this really does work in terms of gravity of beer. And I'm going to give you my commentary in between it. The article goes like this. So, what is a high gravity beer? Well, a high gravity beer, also known as strong beers, are brews with elevated alcohol content achieved through higher original gravity during the brewing process. Original gravity is that first starting out gravity measurement that you take whenever you take the grains. You convert them to sugars. There's a term for that, but you convert them to sugars. You drain off that liquid. You measure that. That's your starting or original gravity. Okay? You may see it as SG or OG if you ever see that anywhere on a description of beer or a beer. That's where you're going to get all of that natural fermentable sugar or other types of ingredients that control how that beer is going to be fermented. Now, the fermentation process is a process by which yeast converts sugars, maltose, in the malted grains into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Okay, very important to know that because, well, that's kind of how it's made. In high gravity beers, the initial sugar concentration is significantly higher. Right, remember I said it's like 1.067891, 1.1, right? It could be even higher as that, leading to a correspondingly higher alcohol content. This is where I diverge on this, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay. This intensified brewing process demands greater attention to detail, remember that, including precise temperature control and extended fermentation times. Think wine, okay, because you're really kind of making a wine if you think about it, okay? Various categories of high gravity beers include barley wines, you may have heard of that, imperial stouts, oh gosh, yes, Belgian strong ales, a double, a triple, a quad. If you ever see those terms out there, you'll know that those are certain types of Belgian styles of beers that can be higher in alcohol the more that number goes up. The style showcases the diversity achievable through high gravity, resulting in rich and complex flavor profiles. Barley wines, for instance, exhibit deep malt flavors with hints of dark fruit and toffee. It also kind of be a coffee flavored, if you would. While imperial stouts boast roasted notes such as chocolate undertones, I'm going to include coffee in that too, and be in a thick, viscous mouthfeel. Absolutely, because you've got quite a bit of fermentable still in or there or any other types of floating around materials. To achieve the elevated alcohol content, brewers often employ techniques like using a larger malt bill, and that's the amount of malt that's put into that recipe, if you would. That's your malt bill, which increases the sugar content, and adding adjuncts such as honey or molasses, sometimes other adjuncts as well. They're going to increase the fermentability of that alcohol, and you're going to need to have different types of yeast for these adjuncts as well, so keep that in mind. The increased sugar availability provides more fuel for the yeast, resulting in a higher alcohol yield. Naturally, that's what it's there for. However, this also presents challenges, as the elevated alcohol levels can sometimes overpower other flavors if not carefully balanced. If you've had a really bad or awful quad or something like that, you get the idea. You're gonna taste that alcohol. You're gonna taste that astringency. You're gonna taste that that level of chemical. It's off. Anyway, while the higher alcohol content is a defining feature, it should harmonize with the other elements like malt sweetness, hop bitterness, and additional flavors. The honey, the molasses, or anything else you want to put in there. Achieving this balance requires experience and expertise. It involves adjusting the recipe and carefully monitoring the fermentation process. Time, temperature, other factors such as what else did I put in the grain bill, all of that goes into, is this high gravity beer really going to ferment? And sometimes things get stuck, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Moreover, aging plays a vital role in the development of high gravity beers. Aging mellows out the intense alcohol flavors, and allows the various components to integrate more harmoniously. If you ever go to a craft brewer, you're going to see, oh, this is barrel aged. Oh, this was aged in what? This is cask conditioned. This aging process can take place in barrels, yes, imparting the unique characteristics from the wood, or through bottle conditioning. Okay, that can happen, where the beer further evolves over time. Now, I will say, yes, it can do it in the bottle. I did have a Baltic Porter one time from Duck Rabbit that it just sat in the refrigerator for a couple of years, and it aged beautifully. Also had an IPA that came from Green Man up in Nashville, and I left it in the refrigerator because I wanted to share that with somebody. And when we cracked it, it was almost on the verge of saying, okay, I give up. But it actually was very good after that. So I did want to go over those two things. Hydrometer, not hygrometer. We're not measuring atmospheric conditions. Hydrometer, specific gravity, we're measuring that. As well, the intent of high gravity. Now, again, where I diverge on high gravity is you don't always have to have a high gravity beer that's full of alcohol. It's going to be really sweet. It's going to start really high. It's going to come down about right here, and it's going to be sweet after that. Also, there are things called stuck fermentations, where a brewer will start out high, it'll start to go down well, and all of a sudden the yeast will quit on them. Something happens. We just don't know. And that's up to the brewer, the experience part, the technique part, finding out what happened, and then progressing along with the rest of the fermentation process. It happens. I've seen it. I've had a wonderful beer one time that they just said they couldn't get it to where they wanted it to. But it came out wonderful. Like I said, other than that, I definitely hope you learned something today. Hopefully this was useful. It clarified a few things about what a high gravity beer is. So whenever you're out with your friends and they say, oh, wow, this is great. This is a high gravity beer, man. It's going to be so great. You can say, well, here's really what a high gravity beer means. So thank you very much. You guys have a great rest of your day, your week, your month, your year, or whatever. Peace, love, and beer.